for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of That's a Shame. Did you like the enthusiasm
That was
level
good
though?
because last time you did it, you admitted to me beforehand and indeed followed up on that promise that it was going to be a very lackluster introduction.
I'd only been awake for about 1 minute last
Boy,
time.
was it. So it's
I had to lean back in my wheelie chair to do that introduction for fear of blowing out our audience's ears. That's the kind of care and precision I have.
No, it was good.
Thank you very much. I'm Isaac. You're... Oh, no, that's
Declan.
our end. And this has been episode 30.
Sorry.
See
By
you next
law,
week.
we have to end it there.
I can't remember what we normally say at the beginning, but yeah, welcome back to That's a Shame. This is episode 38. Rapidly approaching 40. How do you feel about that?
Much like I would if it were my own age.
Oh, overwhelming depression.
Sense of, what's that? Depths of
Reflecting on a
misery.
lack of achievement, you say.
No greatest extravagances thus far.
Oh dear. Well, we'll be sure to completely bypass any celebration. I'm going to make that a particularly somber episode, actually. I'm going to tell you about different forms of emotional abuse I've suffered over the years. It's going to be good. Tune in for that one, gang. But look, I say this quite frequently. I'll admit to that. But what an episode have we in store for you today? We've got Proust. We've got a Flat Earth update. We've got a Mr. Ben update. And whatever else
who'd have
we managed
thought?
to pull out. Yeah,
In
who'd have thought a cartoon that
2017?
ended 1,000 years ago, that was last broadcast during the days of Jesus himself.
Well, that's one of the interesting things where you're wrong.
What?
Well, you're very wrong.
If you're gonna tell me that it's like actually like Mandela effect, it was from last year and we've all just hallucinated it.
No, there's just a really interesting fact that's coming up in the Mr. Ben update.
Okay,
That you're going to like.
well, why not dive into the Mr. Ben
You want to
update?
just go into it?
I can't bear not to know any longer.
Well, all it was I was listening to last episode on my dreadful walk to work.
Oh yeah. How long does
yesterday.
that take?
Oh, only about an hour and 10 minutes.
Good. Across a field. is it?
Hour and 25 coming home because it's all uphill. So,
And because of Earth's rotation,
well, yeah, exactly.
going against the spin,
I've got to go at least 1,000 miles an hour.
really takes it out of you.
I was listening to us talk, and we were having a discussion about what we thought the purpose of the shopkeeper was. What is the whole message of
Can I
Mr.
just
Ben?
interject briefly? Because I wonder if, when I've mentioned to some people that I listen
To our own show.
yeah. Now, do you think, is that normal? Is that narcissistic? I think it's normal.
I think it's normal. We've got to check that
think
we
it's
haven't
quality control.
offended anyone, or that we've only offended the right people. Is probably more specific.
Yeah.
That the audio quality is all right. We've got to know what we've said so that we can make incredibly witty back references.
More of those coming soon, guys. Keep your ears peeled for our first ever one. Exactly. See, I agree. I think it's like the done thing.
It's not
I don't
like
know if I'd do it
I'm not,
forever.
I'm not sat there. I'm not sat like waiting for the notification to come through that it's available.
As soon as we'd finished.
But yeah, so I was listening to it, and we were talking about the shopkeeper and Mr. Ben in general, and trying to figure out what's the message here.
What is thrust?
And you mentioned something about how the shopkeeper is some kind of
Transatlantic paedophile.
Davy Jones figure who's
yes.
who can't actually go to these worlds, but is just designed to ferry him to them.
Mm-hmm.
But then this had me thinking, what if it's one step further than that?
Right. What if he's the boat?
What if this is Mr. Ben's purgatory?
Oh, that is an interesting idea.
Because if you remember the opening credits to Mr. Ben, and I should hope you do, it's like a little wheel, and it turns round, and you see all of the different incarnations of Mr. Ben that are going to be coming up in the series, of which there was one. And
there was just one series ever.
Yeah. So it keeps turning until it gets back round to Mr. Ben in his bowler hat, which I thought is quite clearly some Buddhist Wheel of Life imagery.
That's lovely.
That you've got to achieve enlightenment,
Nirvana,
before you can get up to Nirvana.
That's really cool. That's like, have you ever read that story that people post on the internet every 1 second called The Egg? Are you familiar with this?
No.
What it is, right? It's about a man who has a little die. I think it starts with him dead. And then he goes to wherever it is kind of situated in nowhere in particular, in the way that those places always are, metaphysical realms. And he meets someone who is kind of unassuming, but is clearly God of some sort.
Oh, right.
And what is revealed through the course of the story is that this man who's died, has been and will be everyone in the universe ever. And that it's just like,
yeah, I think I have.
It's just like the whole universe is just for him to achieve his potential, so he can like join the God people. So the whole universe is an egg, I think, is the theme. I'll put it in the show notes. People can give their interpretations. But that sounds like it's in the Mr. Ben wheelhouse.
Yeah, wheelhouse.
Nice, very nice. So in this mythology then, the shopkeeper is, what is he, like St. Peter figure?
I think he's like
above that.
If we're gonna do a bit of spoiling here, so if you watch Ashes to Ashes, fuck off.
Oh yeah. Watch the American one.
Yeah. But this idea that this world exists, and he's kind of the Philip Glenister figure, you know, the DCI hunt who is there not to explicitly tell you what's going on, but to help you achieve this passage onwards. Because if we listen to the description, and I mean, do try and look. I know that we brought it up, but do try and look past the blatantly paedophilic description of the shopkeeper. So, whether in a book or on television, Mr. Ben's adventures take on a similar pattern. Mr. Ben, wearing a black suit and bowler hat, leaves his house at 52 Festive Road and visits...
Festive Road. Also, 52 is another weeks of the year. The circle
Cards
continues. Well, the circle be unbroken.
And visits a fancy dress costume shop where he is invited by the mustachioed, fez-wearing shopkeeper to try on a particular outfit.
To take part in Operation Neutral.
Yeah, he is like a combination of everyone's
dodgy uncle,
like stereotype of what a paedophile might look like, isn't he?
Yeah, the fez is just like literally caps it off.
He leaves the shop through a magic door at the back of the changing room and enters a world appropriate to his costume. That's helpful, isn't it? You want to be dressed as a Roman and ending up under the sea.
End up in the future. Everyone thinks, who's this not robot? Just bites him to death. I don't like that there's a magic door in the changing rooms, because I bet that the shopkeeper can peer through
That's been very exploited. Do you reckon
used it as a magic glory hole?
How soon after he puts on the costume is the door magic? Like, are the Romans peeping back through at him? Where he has an adventure, brackets, which usually contains a moral, before the shopkeeper reappears to lead him back to the changing room. See, I'd forgotten about that the shopkeeper does appear in the adventures.
But solely as a kind of boring, time to leave the party,
like your mum coming to get you from your friend's house.
That's horrible.
Mr. Ben returns to his normal life, but is left with a small souvenir of his magical adventure. And then I'd forgotten
what are those usually?
But I'll probably just a little token or something.
Boring.
I mean that not in the like the coin sense that you might get like an arcade.
Just gets a different one of those stretched out pennies you get from a museum.
Yeah.
Wow, it's just like the Romans.
So I was sort of like reading through to see if there was anything on the Wikipedia that might confirm or deny this. But what I've discovered is just that this Wikipedia page, though short, has some incredible lines.
Okay.
So here's where you were wrong about the broadcasting. McKee wrote and animated with Ian Lawless 13 Mr. Ben episodes for the BBC in the early 1970s. These episodes were repeated twice a year for 21 years.
Bloody hell. Wow. What longevity.
Yeah.
It's echoed through the ages. It's almost like the program itself is fulfilling the Ben role,
helping us to move on.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that like amazing?
It's immense poetry about it. It really is.
Here's a bit of tragedy to the story, though.
Good.
But phenomenally phrased. McKee has not benefited financially to the extent he might have. Quote, I signed a contract where I only got a one-off payment and no repeat fees, but I've done quite well from a number of other things, and I'm still exhibiting paintings. I get the feeling they didn't ask him for that update, but he just told them. Unfortunately, according to Mr. Ben's Little Book of Life, very little of McKee's original artwork created for the television episodes exists today, as most of it was thrown into a rubbish skip in the 1970s.
That makes it sound ceremonial rather than accidental or just sanitary. It's not a cleaning process. It's like they had to purge it or the magic door would open again.
The shopkeeper would appear.
Every 27 years, Penny Whistle's going to re-emerge with Mr. Ben's
Penny
face.
Whistle?
That's what he's called.
Pennywise.
Pennywise, oh yeah. Penny Whistle's a type of whistle.
You only saw it last
That's
night,
the clangers.
didn't you? We did.
It's good. I like it.
I thought about this the other day when we said about making Mr. Ben from entirely the shopkeeper's perspective, about our failed ODN that we were going to do the clangers, but with no...
ODN, let's explain, is like a test bed kind of drama production.
Yeah.
Where you just write, usually it was like student writing. You write a shit play, put it on. No one comes to see it. Everyone goes home and cries about the death of art.
But our
idea was amazing.
We wanted to do one that was the clangers, but with no narrator. So it's just people whistling at each other for half an hour.
Just going... And then the soup dragon rocks up and goes... He was a terror, that soup dragon.
The soup dragon, as our listeners may have guessed, was absolutely going to be played by the one and only Joseph D'Angelo. No one else in the world
is fucking amazing,
big enough to play the soup dragon.
You have to have a lot of presence as the soup dragon.
Yeah.
Imagine lowering him down on a wire into the barn, just full of people painted pink with whistles and a baffled audience unable to follow. The Clangers, if you don't know what it is, guys, give it a Google. It's an amazing children's show. Is it an Oliver Postgate creation? I think it is,
yeah. I always hated it.
In childhood. I love the Clangers. It's so relaxing. They're just on the moon and they're like pink mice who just walk around the moon living their lives.
I quite enjoy it now, but I always hated it.
And there's the singing, ringing tree. That's a nice idea. Wind chimes they reinvented on the moon, basically. Although there's no wind, I don't think, is there? So who knows how that worked.
The flat earthists are
keen to point that out.
Episode 1 of Mr. Ben was called Red Knight.
That's Knight with a K.
Yeah.
Red Knight sounds like a
Stranger Things.
Battle.
In this very first episode, Mr. Ben has been invited to a fancy dress party. He disliked...
Oh.
Imagine this for...
So he hadn't been to the shop before?
No.
He had, like, impetus to go there?
Yeah. But
That's cool.
Here's part of the impetus. Imagine 7 more troubling words than these. He dislikes parties, but enjoys dressing up. So he looks around...
One of those.
So he looks around the shops for a costume to wear, but everywhere he finds only ordinary, everyday clothes. He was just going to Burton H&M.
Forgotten, he got lost on the way.
Turning into a small lane on his way home, Mr. Ben comes across a costume shop where he chooses an outfit of Red Knight's armour. Changing into the armour, Mr. Ben passes through another door in the shop's changing room and finds himself in another world. He stumbles...
It's the same world.
He stumbles upon a dragon.
Oh no!
And at first thinks it is someone else in fancy dress.
He's a fucking idiot.
It's absolute
You've got an 8-ton costume.
He soon realises his mistake. He learns that the dragon used to be the king's pet until an evil match seller started a fire and made sure the dragon got the blame. That's an amazing...
It's arson. It's an arson subplot. That's so involved and unnecessary, isn't it? Because these episodes are like 1 second long. They're like 20 minutes max. And there's already like so many layers to that plot. So there's a party. He is a man who likes dressing up but doesn't like parties, so we've got to get that exposition across in a scene. Then he's got to like have a scene where he's like just finding normal clothes, like he's going to an office job. Then he's got to discover something, find this secret door, find a dragon, learn about its whole backstory and when it was framed by an evil match seller, which is not like an archetype, is it? The evil match seller. He's just invented that character. It's amazingly involved.
He's one of 2 match sellers in popular culture, the other one being a small girl who just dies in the snow.
A little matchstick girl. That's her. That's a callback because we talked about her.
Exactly, you see. We're
getting her on episode 40. It's going to be special. It's her first interview.
Wryneck Gal, they call her.
That's her.
Mr. Ben helps the dragon regain the king's favour. That's good of him.
I don't like the phrasing of that, though. It makes it sound like he performs a sex act.
Gives him a little kiss.
A fiery matchstick-based penetration.
On returning to his own everyday world, Mr. Ben decides he has had enough excitement and won't be going to the fancy dress party after all. But he tells
I don't believe there ever was a party.
But he tells the shopkeeper that he'll be coming back to the shop again soon to try another costume and have another adventure.
Silly.
Now, what I love about that last bit is that I actually now like to imagine that the whole show is not from an omnipresent perspective, but from Mr. Ben's. And so Mr. Ben has invented this idea that the shopkeeper is magic. But really, the shopkeeper's very confused. That man went into the changing room for 15 minutes, came out, said, I won't be buying it, but I'll be back tomorrow to try on another costume. So, what do you mean? Okay. And have another adventure. What were you doing in there?
The whole party setup seems quite loose and flimsy on Ben's part. Yeah. It's like the Mitchell and Webb sketch Lager Beer. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Where they're in a corner shop and he comes in trying to buy salubrious items. Like, I'll take some of this spring water and a packet of crisps. And what's that over there? I'll have one of your lager beers. And then he's like, now that I come to think of it, looking at it now, I don't have enough money for the water, the crisps, and the lager beer. I'll just take the beer today, and then I'll come out. And he's like, all right, see you tomorrow, Sam. It's that kind of... Mr. Ben is kidding no one but himself about this whole party. He's never been invited to anything in his life because he rocks around dressed as a dragon or a matchstick, interfering with the past in his own head. Creepy little man.
Very, very odd.
I found that Wikipedia pages for old TV shows they always reveal them to be just an absolute hive of mental illness on the part of everyone involved.
Listen to the description of the second episode.
Okay.
It's called The Hunter.
They're all quite like grand titles, aren't they?
Yeah. Mr. Ben is dressed as a hunter, in keeping with the pet shop and the garden centre he passed on his way to the shop.
What does that mean?
So there was a thing earlier that mentioned that often where he's going, what you see in the background on his way to and from the shop, like clues, foreshadows of where he's going to go.
What, so he just dresses up like a hunter to go to a pet shop?
No. So he went past the pet shop and past the garden centre, and the idea of animals and plants combined to create Hunter in the Jungle. So that's the costume he tried on when he gets to the shop.
That does sound like a kind of delusion that he's having then, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This is where it all gets mad. He doesn't behave like a hunter, however. He is apprenticed to another hunter who claims to be the greatest hunter in the world, but prevents him from killing any of the animals by claiming they are not enough of a challenge for him. They finally stumble upon a herd of elephants. Mr. Ben gets them to jump up and down, throwing the hunter off balance. He convinces the hunter to sell his rifle, buy a camera, and become a wildlife photographer.
That's such a lovely
instead.
message. That's really sweet. I like that. I don't quite follow the jumping up and down part. That seems like more trouble than it's worth. You could have just had the conversation with the hunter like, look, Phil, I mean, hunting has had its day, really. It's on the way out. You've seen that, what happened when they killed Cecil the lion. No one's a fan. And just gone with that trajectory rather than a circus-like display of gymnastic ability. I guess he knows what he's doing.
What's great moving on is that like the first three have paragraph-long descriptions of it. But then after that, they
Mr. Ben
just
goes
have
to
like
space
one
or some
line.
shit.
Yeah. Or a Stone Age community lived right next to a dusty and dangerous road frequented by dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals, but want to live in the fresh green countryside. There's just one problem. There are no caves. Mr. Ben has the answer. They can build stone huts.
Wow. Mr. Ben invented civilization during that famous coexistence of man and dinosaur era.
That you can see in footage.
Carl Pilkington's footage. Staggering.
Just two more here. There's one episode that's called Aladdin, brackets, Magic Carpet, which is a great title.
Not another Aladdin. Not your mate Aladdin.
No, it's the same one. And then there was a one-off special episode made in 2005.
Wow.
Based on the final Mr. Ben book called Gladiator.
Okay.
And just listen to this for a description.
I'm ready.
Gladiator. Mr. Ben is transported to ancient Rome, where he meets his friend Smasher LeGroux.
Oh, dear. That's a horrible name.
But he has forgotten that prisoners are made to fight gladiators in the arena, and those who aren't beaten will end up facing the lions.
Oh, Mr. Ben, what an omission on your part.
We don't even find out what happened to him.
He's dead. Surely he died in that last episode.
It was the only final character.
Aslan finishes him off. Says that he's an abomination to the idea of humanity.
The shopkeeper appears, just dragging his limb back into the shop.
The shopkeeper comes and just like
Put it with
fires.
the others.
Oh, that'd be horrible. Like a salad fingers shopkeeper.
Yeah.
That'd be lovely. Well, I think we should watch all of Mr. Ben and relay our thoughts on it over
Do a
time.
little audio commentary.
Yeah, as we keep promising and never doing. Wow. Put it in the pile of to be finished never projects. No, look, we might do that. That'd be fun. And plus, it would take a combined total of about 1 minute to watch all of Mr. Ben.
Yep.
And then about 20 hours to analyse quite why society allowed this shopkeeper to own property and to act as a free man. And he's a clear threat to all who surround him with his secret doors.
Maybe he's like a metaphor for the evils of the market.
Yeah. But in a way, he's not really capitalist because he doesn't seem to be charging.
He doesn't sell anything.
That's why he's getting off on it. Like, that's how we have evidence that the shopkeeper's getting off on the whole process. There's something.
Maybe that's why he keeps inviting him back. Like he needs to get money from Mr. Ben to implement him in some kind of like psychosis. But he just keeps walking out.
He's just a really difficult patsy to get a hold of. Poor Ben. Well, we'll keep you updated with all Mr. Ben updates as they come into us live. We could maybe try and get in touch with anyone who is involved in the creation of the programme, assuming they're all alive.
I want to get in touch with the person who threw it all in a skip.
What was going through your mind when you absolutely decimated the childhood of anyone born in the 70s? I want to find the person who played or conceived the shopkeeper. I hope that's his only work. That's all he's done. He just goes to conventions and plays him.
And as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared.
Horrible creep. Look, let's go into our Flat Earth update. Because there's one particular thing I had to tell you about, but how long has it been since the last episode? Like 4 days or something? Yeah. Just summarise your experience with the Flat Earth groups.
It's becoming increasingly combative, I think.
Yeah, I found that as well. There's a real aggression.
Yeah, they're really starting to come at us. They want us gone.
In a big way.
There have been a lot of posts about why are there even globe-tards in this group?
Yeah, kick the globby babies to the curb.
Which they seem to have not realised that the group is called the Original Flat Earth versus Sphere Discussion. So if you get rid of one side, the versus becomes somewhat redundant.
Yeah, that would be a shame. But otherwise, it seems to be continuing strong. I woke up to 80-something notifications from that one post I did, which is now on like 1,000 comments. I've turned off notifications on that post 8,000 times in the last day, and every few minutes it goes boodum, and I get another one of someone calling me some kind of globe-faced idiot. Yeah. So that's all good. Now, I had a conversation, a one-on-one, with a flat earther the other day. I was doing like writing work, and I was writing these boring articles, and I had this chat up. He sent me a message request after like we'd been going at each other about the shape of the earth in a group over like the week, basically. And he sent me a message that was like, come on, we need to talk about this seriously. I was like, okay, sure, what do you want to talk about? And so throughout the entire day, basically on and off for like, a whole day that I was working, he was sending me messages and I'd reply, like, not instantly, but throughout the day we were getting back to each other's messages. And a couple of observations about that. First is that he was really nice. Like, he seemed like a very nice man. He was from Michigan, I think.
Right.
And he was telling me a bit about like how like his experiences had contributed to believing in the flat earth. And I was like, at one point we were talking about if you can see the curvature of the planet from planes, which you can in conditions that are best suited to doing so. And he was like, well, I've never been in a plane, but my wife has once, and she said that she couldn't see it. So it seems like that's proof. I was like, well, maybe not, but we'll leave it there. And it was like moderately productive is the wrong word, because that implies that any minds were changed on either side. But it was at least interesting to kind of hear someone explain themselves and respond.
Not through a meme.
Yes, exactly. Not through a Microsoft Paint meme. Because he did have answers to some stuff, and that was fine. It was just that the things he didn't have answers to, rather than being like, oh, it appears that my theory of the shape of the planet doesn't have a good answer for gravity or something like that. Maybe I should rethink it, or like be a bit skeptical. He's just like, nah. Well, he's like, well, we each have our own beliefs and ideologies. Some things are just never going to be resolved. And after a while, I was just like, okay, fine. But then I was already a bit, I don't know, like that Lee guy we were talking to yesterday, who revealed himself to be...
Oh, I've got Lee's conversation.
Have you? Yeah, so let's come to Lee afterwards, but the thrust is that he was initially very combative, but then turned out to be profoundly simple. And I mean that in quite a positive way. He was quite stupid, but also just very sweet. He was telling us about how he'd made a spelling mistake, and he was like, I've just got the new LG style version 2, finding it really hard to type. And then Declan responded like, oh, I know what you mean, I've got fat thumbs, so when I type I often do the wrong thing. And he was like, I don't have fat thumbs, thanks. It just missed the point of what you were getting at. But in the same way as that, like, the underlying person kind of coming through once you tear away the layers of shit memes and globe-tard aggression. At the end of this conversation with Jeremy, my Flat Earth pal, he was asking a bit about like what it was like in the UK and stuff like that. And then he was like, well, it's been really great talking to you. Would you mind checking out this app project I'm working on? And I was like, okay, sure. I was quite intrigued by this concept. And he was like, yeah, my mom got me involved in it. She sent me a link, and I have to make this web app to help people sign up. And I was like, okay, I didn't know what he was on about. So he sent me a link, and I've never been faced so instantly, so fully, so thoroughly with the reveal that what I'm looking at is a pyramid scheme. This man, Jeremy's mother, has embroiled him in one of the most apparent multi-level marketing systems I've ever seen. And poor Jeremy has just quit his job to focus on it full time. How do you feel about that?
Oh dear.
Sad, isn't it?
It is a shame that this does happen, that people will get sucked into these things that you think of as being so firmly cemented into the pop culture of what it means to be swindled or scammed that nobody, like timeshare, like who's going to timeshare meetings and getting a timeshare like now? How have you not seen any kind of film or television comedy from the last 30 years in which it's proven to be the biggest scam going? How have you missed this boat? But how do you turn up and go, oh, yeah, no, this is a good idea?
Yeah. Well, what I think is that they're quite similar modes of thinking between the idea that, like, well, there's a lot of evidence against this, but surely my theory of the flat earth is the right one. Like, being unable to attribute any of the wrongs that I pointed out in similar concepts to your own one seems to be a big crossover in what's pointing flat earth people to both flat earthism and absolute pyramid schemes. This pyramid scheme was particularly good because, unlike Herbalife or what's that one where you sell like magazines, I can't remember the name of it, or soap, another one is the soap one. Unlike those, this one was selling an immaterial product, which was a kind of insurance that had no obvious like vector for when it would be used. It was to protect you against a very particular kind of legal threat that I've never heard of nor known anyone to encounter. And like, they're so transparent, these things, that if you just Google the name of them, the first page of results will always be like, core. Is this a pyramid scheme? Yes. Solved. Like, if you're not doing that much research, then quite like with Lee, whose grasp on even 4-letter words and the spelling thereof was so profoundly lacking that you're just like, well, of course you're going to believe the earth is flat if someone says it is, because it's just not, you're not equipped to think otherwise. And that's like, we shouldn't blame people for that. We should maybe blame the education system or whatever, but it's just a shame that you can't really help once it gets to a certain point. You can't like re-educate people, because even using the word makes you sound like an absolute dictator.
Yes.
100%. Tell us about Lee then.
Well, Lee, he came into the fray on your post of your little certificate. Have we mentioned our certificates?
No, I don't think we have. We should post those.
Yeah, we'll post those. I did put mine on the Twitter.
Okay, that counts as a mention.
On the Twitter. Such an old person.
I put it on the Twitter, love.
I sent it in an electronic mail.
You're like John Darkins.
But essentially, we each got awarded by a spectacular sort of pleb a certificate declaring that we were first degree parrot sheep.
Certificate of total failure, it's called as well.
Yeah. The date was time to wake up.
Signature,
signed by the truth. Essentially saying that we'd failed to provide even a single fact in support of the globe Earth. In my case, it was because David admitted that he was literally too stupid to press the see more button.
Yeah, he was like, well, you didn't send me any links. And you were like, well, have you heard of the button that
Here's
says
a screenshot of
rest?
them. And he was like, oh, they were blocked by the see more. and then he blocked me.
Yeah.
That David, of course, whose profile tells us that he's the owner at Look Good and Feel Good and studied at the School of Awesomeology.
Fucking tragic.
So Isaac been trying to get one of these.
I was annoyed because
3 days
you got
now.
given one on my post. Like, I instigated that, and I'd spoken to him at length before, but he hadn't done the thing. I clearly hadn't annoyed him enough. I'd probably been like too nice. I hadn't got under his skin enough for him to block me, and then because these are personalised certificates, it says this is to certify that, and then your actual name is printed on it. Although my one says I failed to do her. Like, whatever, I've proven her own ignorance, so he didn't quite get with
It says his at some points, though.
Well, what's he trying to say to me there? He's just trying to confuse me, even more than he already has with his mad beliefs taught at the School of Awesomeology. I can only assume he's some kind of proctor figure holding up the fort of education that it undoubtedly is. But yeah, so he was one of the more combative people.
And he sent us these certificates, and Isaac posted his to the group with a little message for David if he's out there still listening.
Yeah.
And some people tried. Some people like congratulated us.
Yeah.
Some people just thought it was really funny. Some people fully misunderstood. There was one woman who seemed to think that we had awarded these certificates to either to ourselves or to David,
but with our names on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is despite me explaining it in 3 separate comments, she still didn't understand.
I know.
And then I nearly said Opcropped. Upcropped Lee.
Yes.
And he just posted a link to a YouTube video. They love a good YouTube video.
Yeah. The longer the better.
Saying, try debunking it. Well, the video title is The Best Flat Earth Video, 1000% Proof that the Earth is Flat. So
you're already...
I just commented saying that the use of 1000% has already signalled the level of non-science this video will deliver.
But I bet to them they think, like, well, that's great. They've got to disprove it completely 10 times over. Like, good luck. Checkmate, globetards.
Then I commented, because the documentary was literally made by a company called Odd TV.
Oh yeah, I've seen a video of his.
But then he says ODD.
Oh.
Like he's trying to circumvent the fact that he's called Odd TV.
Probably.
And I just said Odd TV in scare quotes and then indeed. And then Lee replied, "Watch it, ignorant prick."
Now, did he mean watch the video or like watch it? Watch your tone?
I think he meant watch the video.
I think he meant both. He's a master of the ambiguous.
So I commented with some of my problems that arose in the first 2 minutes and 19 seconds of the video. Namely that he claimed there are no real photos of Earth, that water can't stick to a ball, and that flight paths make more sense on a flat Earth.
Wrong.
That doesn't prove anything. So Isaac said, "Don't be rude, Lee. Jesus doesn't like rudeness." And I commented saying, "Also, in another phenomenal twist of irony, you spelled ignorant incorrectly."
Aww.
So Lee then came back and said, "Watch the full thing, please. It's a pretty goog video."
Aww. Lee, goog isn't a word, Lee.
Pretty goog. I just commented
but I like
with
that he's gone please now.
Yeah.
He's taken a different approach. He's realised that the bad cop Lee is making little progress.
So
because of our anti-authoritarian vibe.
Yeah. So then I just commented with pretty goog and tagged Isaac in it. And then Lee replied, "Good. I got the new LG Stylo 2V, and if I slide my fingers over a letter by mistake, it types that instead."
I love that. Slide my fingers over a letter is how you type.
Yeah.
So what he said there is, if I type the wrong letter is typed. It's a lovely, he's blaming the device.
And I love the specificity as well, like that. I'm going to go, "Oh yeah, no, my whole family's having this problem with the LG Stylo 2V."
It's like a child when they over describe what their new toy is. It's really sweet.
So, as Isaac said, I just responded, "That's fairly. I do the same with my absurdly fat thumbs all the time." To which Lee said, "I don't have fat thumbs, so I don't have that problem."
Lee, you're not working with the crowd. You've got to be a better audience member than this. The material might not be, the best, but we've got to start somewhere. Comedy is a two-way street. Lee.
So I respond. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, "So you're one of the lucky ones." I think I was optimistic, thinking that might get through, as Lee pretty much summed up the whole conversation with his final comment of, "I don't know what you're talking about, man."
Oh, Lee, you just want to hug him, don't you? If he didn't have such a horrible face.
such a receding hairline for such a
you can
seemingly
just tell that
young
he smells
person
of grease.
with such wrong views.
It's a shame,
and
isn't
it's just hard. It's hard feeling sympathy for any of them when you know that they're probably an anti-Semite as well.
Yeah, well, that does seem to be a real theme. I think our relationship with the flat Earth, because my involvement has fallen off over the last few days for the most part. I'm less talking to them less, but just my attitude towards them is evolving in the same way as the stages of grief. I think I'm at kind of feeling a bit of pity towards them now, because I've had all the aggression thrown at me, and I've had people making memes out of my face that say Globy baby and various CGI moron and things like that. So I've gone through that, which was wildly entertaining. I've been told that I'm crying about the shape of the planet and all that jazz. But now there's just a real impotence and sadness behind them, because I know that Jeremy and Lee are not the exception, but very much the rule for Flat Earth, which is people who in some societies would be considered too stupid to breathe any longer than they have been allowed so far, but are ultimately well-meaning, sweet people who are just deeply misguided, and we should treat them with compassion. That's where I'm at. I mean, I'm still hate Carlo.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And David for my certificate.
On the other hand, we are planning, aren't we, a venture into a new community, and they are all just cunts.
Yes, this is going to be a difficult expedition for That's a Shame. Especially difficult because we'll have to relay. Like, I'm not sure that all our listenership will know even what we mean by the term incel. So why not explain the concept? We don't have any update now. We've just got a plan to kind of get in on the ground in that, our classic documentarian style. It's not a traditional. It's not the traditional David Attenborough approach to watching mad things happen.
This is like the Grey Gardens of the internet.
Yeah, it's documentary for the podcast age.
So in incels,
yes,
it's an abbreviation for involuntary celibate.
Yes,
already one of the most tragic terms ever formulated. But these are groups of furiously angry, misogynistic losers.
Oh, that's them.
And they have a little subreddit in which they like to moan about the fact that women are evil because they won't fuck them.
Yeah.
And that it's not their fault in any sense. It's about the standards of women. It's society's fault. It's about
because
chads.
It's because women have got more power now, so they have this idea that comes from the like the red pill concept, like the game and all that, about the sexual marketplace, which is a fucking shame of a term.
I know.
But because women are now more, they have more agency within society, they can do what they want in a way that they couldn't 100, 200 years ago. This has been really bad for the involuntary celibate community.
It's been really bad for ugly people who want to have sex.
Who want to force themselves on people without any consequences. Yeah. They're not happy about it at all. But they have just the most phenomenal wealth of terminology.
They tag cel, C-E-L, onto the end of whatever they think it is about themselves that makes them so unfavoured in the game of sexual life.
So some of them, like, I think the first time I saw it, it was just like face cell. Like, that's just someone saying, I've got an ugly face, I'm fucked. Which is, on the spectrum of understandable criteria. That's more towards reasonable than, in fact, in light of some of the ones we've seen in the last week, looks like a beacon of normality.
Because someone has come out as wrist cell.
But so many people have come out as wrist cell. Apparently, like, maybe listeners, if you've ever experienced this, if you're female and you've been put off, or actually, if you're attracted to men, let's say, and you've been put off a man as a potential sexual partner because of the size of his wrists, do please, for the love of God, let us know, because this is a phenomenon that I'm confident exists solely within the mind of the wrist cell, of whom they are legion.
But it's all coming together. Is this why you always wear loads of like rubber bands and stuff around your wrists?
Oh my God, yeah. Maybe I would be wrist cell if I didn't have these 4 Disney rubber bands on my left wrist.
Yeah,
I just keep my right wrist behind my back and gesture wildly, like Charlie's uncle in Always Sunny with his giant hand.
Yeah.
So wrist cell, is a big one. Like that is a huge percentage of the population. But so let us know if you've been affected by wrist cell.
But they just get worse and worse. My favourite at the moment of all time is still skull cell,
which has a real phrenological bent to it, doesn't it? It's like, well, I can't be loved. I've got the skull of a criminal.
And like, here's the part of the skull that says that no woman will ever look at you. It's this huge amorphous lump on the side of you.
But the thing is, like, if it were, like we've said, if it were John Merrick, the Elephant Man, describing himself as skull cell, then you'd be like, okay, well, I understand your point there, John. I'm sure, love is a complicated thing, and it's about more than just the physical appearance. I'm sure there's someone out there, John. Maybe now that Tinder exists, you'll have more luck than you did back in the day. But if, as is the case, what they mean is that they don't have, like, the jawline of a fucking, I don't know, like a Calvin Klein model.
It's literally millimeters
Yeah, they describe it as millimeters of bone.
Yeah.
Density or
Did you
something
see that
makes the
dreadful
difference.
meme that someone
No.
had made of it was one of those who would win memes, and it was who would win, and on the left it was 300,000 years of uninterrupted genetic history, and then a picture on the right of someone with, I don't know, a slightly thinner face than you might want. With a skull semi superimposed over the top of it. It's like, or a few inches of bone. Well, if that is really where you're at, like if you've managed to dig yourself into a hole where the only ladder out of it is to assume that, well, I was born without a perfect skull, therefore I'm going to advocate for some of the most heinous, hateful crimes that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, they're really quite unnerving. There's eye cell as well, and we haven't really. I think it has something to do with people. I read one person say that their eyes weren't, like the whites of their eyes weren't bright enough. That's why no one will sleep with me.
Jaundiced.
That's it. But another person was just about like their eyelids were too hooded. And that was the whole reason. I'd be a total Chad. Chad is their term, their catch-all term for men who I don't even really know how they're defining it. Is it just normal people? Is it people who aren't
it's normally
Sky
like jocks, muscular.
Okay.
They consider them all to be like hugely abusive and horrible.
What I like about it is that there's a real homoeroticism that I'm certain they don't mean, because they're some of the most homophobic, transphobic,
but maybe
misogynistic people of all time. But when they're
I
describing
reckon-
the Chads,
I reckon that it's like American Beauty, like Chris Cooper in American Beauty.
he doth protest too much.
Yeah.
He's
So
like,
really-
oh my God, I hate Chad with his glistening biceps and abs that'll make you forget Jesus. It's just like, they just get really into
And
the
some of them have flares on there saying about how many times they've been cucked, which is the term for when they've been going after a girl and they've been, treating her like a princess.
Going after can here mean had eye contact for 0.3 seconds.
Yeah. But then they've gone out with somebody else instead.
Yeah.
And I just saw a guy on there whose flare was cuck times 2 BBC.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
If for those who don't know what that term means, have a little Google on your own clock. Give it a goog, as we used to say, as Lee used to say.
Not for the British Broadcasting Company.
No, not them. It has a rather different bent.
You'll find it on a different sort of website.
Overall, yeah, they're a total shame. But what a shame that we're very interested in just kind of understanding where they're coming from. Because at the end of the day, they're all people, like the flat Earth people, and we want to understand their how they've got to this stage of their life where this is what's happening.
What about the guy who said that being a short man made you the most oppressed person on the planet?
It was like, if you're under 5'8", life is over. Like, was literally the name on the post.
He said that there was the gender wage gap was a fake, but the height wage gap was real. That men over 6 foot earn $700 a year more.
I've heard that there's like a correlation in, but it's so particular. It's like if you work in corporate finance or something because of like the perception of authority. But to put that argument against the idea that there is no gendered wage gap, or the idea that therefore short men have it worse than anyone else on the planet. They literally described them as the most oppressed class in the history of the world.
Yet no one's ever had a march for us, he said.
Yeah.
Imagine a march. Should we organise a march for short men?
Please.
See who comes along. Fucking
That would be amazing.
Street full of dwarves.
Oh dear. But yeah, look, we'll give you updates on incels as we learn more about them. Leave us to do this research, guys, because it can get pretty unpleasant pretty quickly. And we're kind of inured to it by now.
Yeah, we're fully lost to the internet.
Yeah.
When Isaac dies and eventually has to become part of the internet, he's going to be so at home. It's going to be unreal.
Oh dear. Right, Proust.
Okay,
We've waited
come on.
too long. I
Let's
think
do
we're
a
going to
couple.
do maybe number 26. We left off with what is your most marked characteristic, and I had, as I recall, a very precise, singular, clearly defined answer to that I can't remember now. But number 26, what do you most value in your friends, and why? Also, the Queen is on the cover of Vanity Fair this month. Or
Really?
week. I don't know how often Vanity Fair comes out.
Oh, well,
along
well
with the
done.
headline, Poking Mark Zuckerberg. Sounds like a strange concept. Fun. So,
What do you most value in your friends?
I've got a quick, as I like to do, quick addendum.
Go on.
A query. Now, is this what I value in pre-existing friends or what I would look for in new friends? Because they're not necessarily the same thing.
I presume pre-existing. Like, what is it
Okay.
that you most value in your friends? Why are
My
your best
current
friends
friends.
your friends?
Okay.
You know, what were others lacking?
That meant they were shunted off the bench.
Yeah.
When we divvied up who we were going to stay in touch with from uni.
They're good. Let's keep bringing that back up. Makes us sound great.
Really friendly. It was actually, I don't know, there's two sides to that story, because on the one hand, that could be portrayed by a feckless informer as like an act of barbaric lack of empathy. But on the other hand, we were just like, look, we recognise that we're two people with very limited emotional resources. So why we don't want to spread ourselves too thinly. We need to just cut it down to the select few, like Jesus did with the disciples.
I like to think of it more as we just we were aware that there is the tendency at the end of these long periods of time
to be
together,
like, "Oh
whether
my
it be
God, stay in
university
touch."
or prison,
Yeah.
to be like, oh, you like we'll be best friends, like we'll go come and stay at each other's houses all the time, and we were just very aware that not only does that not happen in the most cases, but also that we didn't want it to for 90% of the people we called friends. That there are so few people whose houses I want to go to. I don't want to see where people live. I don't want to know about it.
I know it sometimes can be a worry, can't it? Like if you go and someone's got too many different stuffed animals,
Yeah,
or like too many. By stuff I meant taxidermy rather than like
yeah.
Beanie Babies.
You then have
Although
to
both
just
of them are the same.
rethink your entire 3 years as friends and think,
Yeah.
well, hang on, okay.
It paints in a new light. You're like, oh, that's why she kept bringing up animals, trying to stuff me.
That's why we always took that long route past Build-A-Bear.
So in current friends, then,
Yeah.
I guess it's not going to be that illuminating, because for whom is it not the case that like humor is
Yeah.
a really important thing, or like having a quick wit in an intellectual sense, or I don't know, not being horrible to you. Is a good one.
Yeah, actually, who's answering this question with they have to spit all the time? I'm not friends with people unless they spit on the
They have to have
street.
a faint smell of urine about them that's untraceable, but palpable nonetheless. A real miasma.
And it must always go unmentioned. No one's ever allowed to bring up the urine.
Have you had, or have you had, oh fuck, I've confused myself. Have you had, or do you have any friends or acquaintances with
Smell
a
of urine.
particular, no, not necessarily urine, but with a particular unpleasant scent that you have not broached?
No, I tend to not be friends with such people.
But what if you can't help it? What if it's like a colleague at work who you have to talk to? I'm just curious.
I have had
as
a
to-
colleague who always smelled very odd.
Mm-hmm.
But
sentence?
what was
should put
was
that on your
comforting
CV.
was that everybody knew that he smelled odd, so
Right.
we could all talk about it to each other.
Okay.
So nobody had to confront him.
I'm very curious about the origins, the origin story of people who walk around life with an unusual scent.
It's really, I mean, for me, it's odd because I have such a really strangely particular sense of smell. Because as I've mentioned
can't you
before,
not really
my
smell?
nose is really broken. Like I have such a poor sense of smell. But it seems that what I can smell, possibly because it's so little, I have a really good memory for,
Right.
and I really can really easily identify.
Olfactory memory is supposed to be like one of the
Yeah.
strongest anyway, isn't it?
My girlfriend is constantly kind of slightly unnerved when I'm like, why have you stopped using your shampoo? Or sometimes I just go, you know,
Oh, fucking Hannibal Lecter.
yeah, I know, exactly. You're wearing Evian skin cream. And sometimes you wear L'air de Temps.
Like when he smells
today.
Encephalitis in someone's head.
Oh, yeah.
Horrid. He describes it as sweet.
Or sometimes I launch with the slightly more worrying sentence of, you don't smell like you. or indeed, you do smell like you.
No.
And then the other week, it was even more worrying because I went over to Ireland and I stayed with my girlfriend's parents. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, like, I was staying in her room, but she wasn't there. So I used her shampoo and then had to send her the message that I smell like you.
Oh no.
Which I realise is probably a mistake.
I smell like you.
But yeah, maybe I have had friends who smelt really bad. And I just didn't know.
Well, what would be your approach to broaching the subject? Say, like, we've both got a mutual friend called Bob, let's say. And I didn't actually mean that to refer to anyone in particular, but it accidentally has done. And, you know, like, we're really good friends. We, like, see him out in... Where do we go? We see him out at Spoons.
Yeah, the only place you could think of that we go to.
But I meant the one in like Charing Cross, so it's salubrious, relatively speaking. And one day Bob comes in, and it's always been there, but today it's just worse than usual. And he's like a well-kempt person, like nice clothes, had his hair cut. He's got like, you can tell that there's some cologne there, but it's just being laughed at by the overpowering stench.
I think you've just got to go in big.
Bob, you fucking stink.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, kid.
You don't have to go Pacino. Oh, Bob, you stink.
You fucking...
I tell you.
Smell like death, Bob.
we gotta get you some cologne or something.
Oh, I'm gonna cover you in it. Lynx Africa. Stat. What do you got?
Like, I think you've just got to go big.
If that ever happens to me now, I'm definitely doing it as Al Pacino. That's just, what a great way to deal with the awkwardness of that situation, to just become another person. Like, well, Bob, it wasn't me that told you smell like shit. It was Al, and he's gone now.
Alan
gone back
Pacino,
to
off he's gone.
Alfred Pacino. What did we pretend he was called? Albert Pacino.
Alan, I think, wasn't
or
it?
Alan Pacino. It's actually Alfredo or something, isn't it? Al Pacino, let me look it up. We can't leave our listeners uninformed. It is Al Pacino, born Alfredo James Pacino. What a cool name. But yeah, that should be how we deal with it. So we've established then that scent, it is actually important in a friendship. If the opposite of scent is important, then it must at least have some importance.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not asking that you, like, come decked out in samples from, like, Ted Baker's cologne range. But, you know, make an effort is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I mean, you mentioned humour earlier as one of them. I think that's definitely one for me. I just cannot, I would rather have a friend who is the most horrible person you'd ever known if they could crack a joke than the most insipidly boring person who is also very nice. I haven't got time. I can spend time with people who are horrible. I mean, I wouldn't go to their house, but then again, I've said I wouldn't go to anyone's house, I suppose. But I can't, just people who aren't funny really make me angry.
There's a lack of something there, isn't there?
Yeah. It feels
it's
like,
often that there's...
I always feel like they have an air of superiority about, like, not finding things funny. Like, you're childish if you laugh.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, is that it's not just, like, I don't criticise people who aren't very funny, but I criticise people whose lack of humour acts as a deterrent to others.
Yeah, it's a lack of a sense of humour, not lack of an ability to be actively funny. But if you can't appreciate when funny things are happening, or when, like, your other friends are being funny, then
one of my
why
tests,
even be there? One
of my tests of, like, or it's not so much a test I would actively throw out, but I quite like, in conversation with new people, the optimal environment for this is if you know one other person. So if it was like me and you meeting a load of people that we don't know very well, or maybe like a mixed ability group, let's say, where the ability is how well have you known us so far. I like sort of wrong-footing people in conversation, which is not necessarily a dick move as it sounds, but it's just more interesting to kind of cut through small talk by, like, bringing up, I don't know, something about mad topic. to talk about, or just sideways glances at the world. And if people can't handle silence that follows when someone says something odd, then I find that that's a person who's like deeply insecure about their own place in conversation. So anyone who goes, that's awkward, is someone who I will instantly hate. And it doesn't really happen to me very much because I'm quite like aware of situations in which you're going to make someone feel awkward by saying something, so I don't. But if someone I know, like, who's more willing to suppress that instinct, like you or like Danj, were to say something outlandish and then someone was like, okay, that's awkward, then I'm like, I hate you.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't come up with anything better or just revel in what is obviously a deliberately awkward moment, then there's a problem there. And I don't think we'd ever get on.
It's because they've used it as a chance to kind of try and seize the ground at an easy moment.
Status. They're trying to get above you, as me and Chris used to describe all social interaction.
Yeah.
We used to go to like meetings and be like, right, we need to get above him. So step 1, we're going to get above this guy. Step 2, we're going to just lay out the plan, and then step 3 is just we'll get it done. That's it. Everything's about getting above.
As a side note, an ability to handle drink
Okay.
is fairly essential.
Now, by handle, do you mean they need to be able to drink? Do they need to be able to match you?
No.
They need to be able to like...
No. They don't have
Well,
to
they
be
need to
able
know
to
their
drink
limit.
loads, but they need to be able to handle themselves with some decorum through drink.
Okay. Right.
And, you know, this is absolutely not to say that I always do the same myself. I would not dare be such a hypocrite.
Devilish lie.
But for large portions of any night, I and those around me can handle their drink. Mm-hmm. But if someone, after like an hour of being there, is already throwing up,
That's
or
a
is
shame,
already
isn't it?
like shouting too loudly,
Just throws the rhythm off
it does.
the entire night.
You're making the
Comes
rest of us feel
cascading
bad,
to a halt.
and you need
Yeah.
people to be on their game, certainly for the first few hours of any event, because ordinarily you and I, certainly if we're both there, will be running some sort of scheme. So you need people to be with it. Like when we, with my re-drinking, when we had the ever-growing tables.
Oh yeah,
You
that
need-
was fun.
If people aren't on their game, if people are already too drunk, then it falls apart. Either they're being obnoxious, so the staff tell you've got to stop what you're doing, which is a very quick way for me to hate you, or they're just not with it, and so the fun falls apart. Like we had a small corner table at the Sam Smiths in Trafalgar Square, and we were essentially just annexing entire swathes of this little kind of pit that we were in.
Absolutely Ukraining the fuck out.
It was unbelievable. And we were just kind of, as soon as anyone left, we'd claim these tables and we made them kind of zigzag across the floor. And we had, because our group was ever growing, and there was just a couple of people in the corner that were refusing to leave, that we had this huge
They were holding
standoff
out.
with.
The UN had to get involved. It got messy.
But we're always
sanctions.
We're always running mad little things like this, and so we need people to kind of be with it.
Yeah,
And that's why
you need to get with the program.
That's why
is the
you
issue.
need to be able to handle the drink a bit.
Yeah, I guess that throws up another thing I value in friendship, which is being up for adventure. Like I feel like I have a lot more adventure in my life than I was led to believe adulthood would consist
Yeah.
of. So whether that's just like, well, we're near some woods, we'd better go and like run around in them and see if there's any like mad people with axes in there at a house party, or it's just like annexing tables, or I don't know, exploring odd parts of places you haven't been to before. I think a sense of wanting to get involved with adventure is a good idea.
Yeah, because it's so easy to just go out and have a regular night, and sometimes that's all you want. But you need people who are willing to, on the spur of the moment, change those plans.
Yeah,
to be ready
I need a wild card element.
To come on board with those tiny little moments that only crop up within the second, in the present, that you can't plan for.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to go with those, they're boring as all fuck. But if they want to just go to Camden at 11 o'clock at night, they can fuck off home.
Or if they want to run away across the meadows so that Declan has to chase them.
Oh, yeah.
That's something you've
They
never
can
forgiven.
definitely fuck off. They can keep going through that meadow till they come to a huge fucking well on the other side and they can fall down it. But instead of getting Batmaned into a superhero, they can just die there like Maddie.
Tamara. Is it Tamara in the ring? Samara.
Samara.
Maybe. Yeah. Tamara's just some girl who fell down a well. Sorry about
Tragic
that. Tamara's
story.
family. Okay. I don't think we have time for any more questions.
What's the next one? Let's do one more.
Actually, no, this is a quick one. Who are your favourite writers?
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I would have to say...
Sondheim.
Yep. Go on.
Does that count?
You want to? Yeah, it does count. Go on, you finish yours then.
Okay, that's good. No, that's it. Everyone knows. If you've listened to any episodes of this and not got the impression that sometimes the greatest
writers
of all time.
You're allowed more than one.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because
but let's alternate.
Okay, because I was about to say I don't think you'd ever forgive yourself listening back if you didn't mention Nabokov.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you weren't. You were going to leave it at Sondheim. I'm writing to his family. I'm going to tell him. DeLillo.
Yeah. We've mentioned him in the last episode as well.
Yeah, we did.
I'm sure we brought up all these people before. Also, who else? Paul Simon. Here's a little sideways one for you. I think he's one of the greatest lyricists of all time, guys. So have that.
I think you'd be a fool to disagree.
Yeah. Who else do I like?
I'm going Chris Hitchens.
Oh, yeah. Such a clarity of prose, Chris Hitchens.
It's unrivaled.
Incisive.
Go on.
Who else do I like? I don't know, there are not that many that are eternal favourites for me. I'm not that attached to people's bodies of work so much as individual tomes. But people like, I don't know, basically if you were Russian and you were alive in the 19th century, then I'm almost certainly a fan.
Why is Russian 19th century literature so good and British 19th century literature some of the most boring prose ever put to paper?
I guess, well, all that British literature of the time, and even early 20th, is so caught up with telling the same story about class that, although there's that novel that I read it's the only thing I ever read at uni, that was on my course, that was this thing called Diary of a something man. But anyway, it's about a serial killer, and it was from Victorian England, or Scotland maybe. And it was actually really interesting, but totally forgotten. So there was interesting stuff. It's just that everyone was choosing
the boring.
Why, Lord Farquhar? I do declare you've rather looked at me wrong. I am but a scullery maid, and all that bullshit for 8,000 pages.
In the world of,
but yeah,
go on.
No. Well, I was just going to say on Russia, there must have been something particular to the kind of turmoil that the country was in.
Yeah,
it seemed to be in constantly.
Yeah.
That just bred a genius class of writers that had long since gone.
In the world of poetry, I'm going to add Louis MacNeice and I'm going to add David Harsent.
Carol Ann Duffy?
Oh, no, it was David Harsent, not Carol Ann Duffy. Sorry.
They're quite similar there,
aren't
they?
Wrong. Wow, wrong. Don't be a prick.
Also
I'm going to put Andrew Lloyd Webber in there as well. Yeah, he's sort of like
down.
He's like
the new Sondheim.
The modern Sondheim, isn't he? He's Sondheim.
No, jump off a cliff. I'm going to chuck in Murakami. I always enjoy a Murakami book, even though they're almost similar to the point of farce, because they all involve jazz, black coffee, cats, and classical music that is unnecessarily detailed in its particular description, and it's always a particular performance. But there's something about that kind of magical realism that is like reading your own dreams put better than you. And it was reading Murakami for the first time was the first time that I appreciated translation as a concept.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just the most elegantly translated prose I've come across. Very nice. Let's go on to email, I think. So that was question what? 27. We've got plenty more coming, guys. 35 in total. So don't you worry yourselves. We've had 3 emails this week. Thought Monster, very quickly here. Thought 14. Do you ever think about the fact that cows drink milk but won't eat cheese? I like the word won't here.
Yeah.
I've tried. They won't go for the bugger. That's odd. No, I've never thought about that fact, I'll be honest. Even now that you've mentioned it, my mind went blank.
I've skipped over.
The entire time.
I have forgotten what the thought was.
Thought monster. You're obsessed with food stuff at the moment and it needs to change.
It did
right?
just.
That's just a tip.
It did remind me of the incredible line in the thick of it when Glenn is being brought before the inquiry, and he's asked, and does everyone leak? He's like, well, that's like asking me, does a cow drink milk? Well, does it? I don't know. Probably.
Glenn, they do. Mark's been in touch. Mark's still in Paris as far as we know, but it turns out he's a prolific traveller, Mark. He's been around the block. Isaac and Declan, as always, enjoying listening to your discussions. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it. Moving on from the philosophical discussions of is the earth flat, do we evolve, and can we read the Bible as an exact historical reference text, to hurricanes. I trust we can all agree that hurricanes are real. Do you say hurricanes, or as the BBC insists in its live broadcast, hurricane? Hurricane Irma is back again.
Hurricane.
Same.
I just pronounce the word is the thing.
Yeah, I do that as well. It seems like RP tries to prevent you from doing that for the most part. We could, by now, have had, for the first time in a season, 2 Category 4 or greater hurricanes making landfall on mainland USA. Note how it has to be USA as the reference point to make it newsworthy. Let's not worry about all those small islands that have been flattened on the way. True. Sad. It seems that scientists are not in agreement as to if the increasing severity of recent hurricanes is linked to climate change or not. Or, I guess, even if climate change is real. I'm guessing those in the track of one of these monster storms probably don't have the time to join this discussion or particularly care for the finer scientific points concerned, certainly at the moment. Some say that we only think there are more big hurricanes now because they're more reported, and in fact it's really this is just as it's always been. Anyway, I think one point that to me is clear, that we humans are the most destructive creature that has ever lived on Earth, and we need to do something to change our ways. All that aside, I do have a hurricane story.
I love the segue.
My family and I, yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's such a good end point for that first section as well, end of Act 1. All that aside, I do have a hurricane story. My family and I had just moved to northern Florida. My son had gone to school on the school bus, best way to get there I've heard. My wife, daughter and myself had gone to the mall. We got there and all the shops were shut. We finally found someone to ask what was going on, and they looked at us as though we were mad and asked if we realised that there was a hurricane on the way. We said we'd heard mention of it, but did not really think that it was a big deal. So we drove back to the school to find our son was the only one left and the headmistress was about to take him home with her. Oh no. We went to our house, which fortunately had storm shutters, and waited out the storm. It was truly amazing to see how powerful nature can be. This was only a Category 3 storm. We still had about 20 inches of rain, and the damage done to the local community was severe. We all survived unscathed. Regards, Mark. Thank you for your email, Mark. We should say, if we have any listeners in, because we've got, I'd say about half our listenership is in America. If anyone's being affected by hurricane at the moment, Irma or whatever the last one was that I've already forgotten, Harvey, then we hope you're doing well. Our thoughts are with you, aren't they, Declan?
They are indeed, yeah. Stay safe.
And stay safe.
Don't panic, but also don't be one of these people that ties themselves to something on the beach to prove a point.
Shooting at the volcano, the hurricane. They're all the same. They're all different Titans and Hercules. Yeah. Don't start shooting guns at it like that article said. Did you see that?
Yes, it's a shame.
That's a shame, isn't it? Adding more debris there to kill people as the winds whip through. Yes, thank you for your email, Mark. That's interesting to hear a first-hand account. I have no first-hand account of hurricanes other than that about this time, 5 years ago, I was flying to Florida through the ironically named Hurricane Isaac, which, if it had killed me, I'd post a status that was like, you're allowed 1 minute of laughter for every 10 minutes of solemn reverence, because that would have been a real shame.
You're killed.
It might have been September 11th in 2012 as well, so there was a double-edged flight in that regard.
I didn't know you then, but I would still have laughed when I inevitably heard your story on the news.
It would have been like a not the onion piece.
Yeah.
I hope. Look, how can people get in touch is the question on everybody's lips. And the answer on mine is tas@shame.city for all your emails. Send us your thoughts, your feedback. What do you think about the flat earth? Are hurricanes as bad as they thought they were? Climate change, what's that about? anything you're thinking about. We've had one review as well.
Oh, we have, yeah.
Very funny indeed. 5 stars, says a Jewish person 99. Always amusing. Always, that is. Not sometimes, always. 2 great hosts, I think he means us, and deserves a bigger audience. Well, thank you very much.
He was on about me and Amy. Sorry.
Wow, I think he was on about me and the times that I edited myself to speak over. He was on about me and the times that I had little harpsichord music on Lincoln or Darwin.
It was Darwin, yeah. Lincoln.
Yeah. Ever the fan
you were
of
part of a different show.
Also, before we do another plug, we're going to be revisiting our friends at A Turning Point podcast in the coming weeks. So we'll probably post another mini episode on the feed, so look out for that. We forgot to plug the mailing list last week as well, so shame.city/mail, where you'll receive all manner of silence and the occasional punctuation of an email every now and then with a bonus episode. How else can people get in touch?
They can find us on Twitter, can't they?
Oh, what a place.
It's a wonderful home for all things shame.
Lovely way to
certificates, tweets that show that Isaac's a bit like Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco.
I didn't like that at all.
I know you didn't like that, but the thing is, it's almost exactly what you have said several times on this podcast. So.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, then go to @That'sAShameCast to be in the cool club.
If you'd like to see Isaac's furious rebuttal, you can find him at IsaacBD, or you can find myself at Cynical Declan. I'm mostly just retweeting memes these days.
It's a sad life. Also, shame.city/Facebook. We've got a Facebook group that we're going to do something with one day, we promise. Probably at the moment, what we'll do is just post flat earth stuff that we find and screenshots of madness from around the world. So if you want to get involved, have a little chat with us, then that's the place to do it. Other than that, you can leave a review, shame.city/review, or search That's a Shame on iTunes. 5 stars, please. We love you. I've been Isaac. You've been.
I have been Declan.
And we'll see you on Wednesday.
See you then.
Lots of love.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you.